Welcome to Storytime. Every January, an award is given to an artist whose book for children is considered to have been the best illustrations that year. And then honor awards are given for up to three other artists whose work is also exceptional. The award is called the Caldecott Medal, and it is named in honor of an English illustrator whose name was Randolph Caldecott. The award is given by the American Library Association. So each week during Winter Read, Do, Explore, we'll be hearing about the story of the life of a Caldecott Medal winner or honoree. And this week, we're going to hear a story from the life of Robert McCloskey. But first, we're going to start with our song. Hello, friends. Hello, friends. Hello, friends. I'm glad to see you here. This week, our story is about Bob McCloskey. He grew up in Hamilton, Ohio, which isn't terribly far from here. He always liked art, but he didn't know that he would necessarily grow up to be an artist. But that changed during his last year of high school, when a calendar he did to celebrate George Washington won a Scholastic Art and Writing Competition award. That award got him a scholarship to art school in Boston. And Boston is where our story begins. Bob went to art school in Boston after he graduated, and he went looking for work. It was a hard time in the country. It was during the Great Depression, and lots of people were looking for work. Bob ended up moving home to Hamilton, Ohio, and he designed the artwork on the new city hall. When that job ended, he was hired to paint murals at an office building in Boston. Bob liked Boston. He also liked the big park in downtown called the Boston Common. It is a really, really big park, and it has ponds and paths and statues, and it's surrounded by really busy streets. One day when he walked to work, he saw a mother duck leading her ducklings across a street full of cars, and she just quacked at all the traffic as if, of course, they would stop for her, and she just kept right on walking. It was something that actually happened rather often in the big city, but it stuck with Bob. When he finished doing the murals in Boston, he moved to New York City and was working as a book illustrator. And he kept thinking about that family of ducks he had seen walking across the busy street in Boston. He really wanted to do a book and illustrate it. Bob and his roommate, Mark, were both children's book illustrators. So they understood that sometimes you have to do unusual things to get your pictures just right. Bob was fascinated by the ducks. He would go to the Science Museum in New York and he would look at all the exhibits of the stuffed ducks, the ones that had been live, and after they died, they mounted them. He would draw them from the front, he would draw them from the back, he would draw them from the side, try and get them just right. He would get in real close, but he never quite got what he imagined his duck drawings should be just like. One day, a fellow artist said to him, you should get some live ducklings and try drawing those. He's like, where do you get live ducklings in the middle of a big city? Hey, you go to the farmer's market, he said. So that's what Bob did. He came home with 4 baby ducklings. When his roommate Mark came home and saw the 4 tiny ducklings in their kitchen, Mark said, what are we going to do with these? And Bob said, well, somebody's going to have them for a roommate. So they tossed a coin, and Mark lost, and he got to be the roommate to the 4 ducklings. Every morning for weeks, just as the sun started to come up, the ducklings would start quack, 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 wanting to get out of their box and be fed. Bob would spend the day crawling around on the floor behind the ducklings. He would follow them around and he would draw them as they waddled. He would draw them as they fell over. He would draw them as they ate. He would draw them as they swam and paddled in the bathtub. He drew them when they slept. He would even draw them when they pooped. He spent a lot of time crawling around on the floor with a box of Kleenex, picking up all of that duckling poop. This went on for weeks. Finally, the ducklings got too big to live with Mark and Bob in their apartment anymore, so he found them a better home on a farm. But by now, Bob could draw a really good duckling. So he drew Mr. and Mrs. Mallard and their 8 children. Jack, Cack, Lack, Mack, Knack, Quack, Pack, and Whack. Did you notice I missed one in there alphabetically? He drew seeds on the Boston Common and the cars on the busy streets. He drew Michael, the policeman who stops the traffic so Mrs. Mallard and her family can safely cross the street. Bob's story, Make Way for Ducklings, became a very popular book. So popular that many years later, after it was very first written, the people of Boston had a sculptor design 9 statues for the park where the story takes place. And if you go to Boston Common today, you can find Mrs. Mallard and her 8 children waddling in a line near the pond. And that is our story of Robert McCloskey and his Make Way for Ducklings. So I'll see you next week for story time. Goodbye, friends. Goodbye, friends. Goodbye, friends. It's time to say goodbye.